March 28, 1945, 11 p.m. The Kremlin, Moscow. The air inside the little corner Stalin's private office is thick with the smell of Balkan tobacco and the heavy, stifling weight of impending victory. Joseph Stalin leans over a massive map of Europe, his yellowed fingers tracing the jagged red lines of the Soviet front. To the east, the Red Army is a juggernaut, a steel tide of millions washing toward the Oder River. But it's the blue lines to the west that make his jaw tighten. General Dwight D. Eisenhower's Allied forces aren't just moving, they are sprinting. The Rhine has been breached. The German defense in the west is collapsing like a house of cards in a gale. Stalin watches the reports coming in American armor is bypassing pockets of resistance, racing across the Hessian hills, moving with a speed that defies the grueling, bloody logic of the Eastern Front. They are not fighting, Stalin mutters to Molotov, his voice a low, gravelly rasp. They are being invited in. You can almost feel the temperature in the room drop. For Stalin, this isn't just about defeating Hitler anymore. The Great Patriotic War is morphing into something else, a silent, high-stakes heist for the soul of a continent. He looks at Berlin, the ultimate prize, and then back at the blue arrows of the Americans. If Eisenhower keeps this pace, the Western Allies could reach the Elbe or even the Spree before the first Soviet boot touches the outskirts of the Nazi capital. Stalin picks up a telegram. It's a direct communication from Eisenhower not to the Soviet High Command, but to him. Eisenhower is suggesting a shift in strategy. He wants to bypass Berlin and strike south toward the National Redoubt in the Alps. Stalin's eyes narrow. He doesn't believe a word of it. In the paranoid corridors of the Kremlin, honesty is a tactical weakness, and Eisenhower's transparency looks like a brilliant, deceptive mask. Stalin knows that in the game of empires, the man who holds the city holds the future. He turns to his generals, Zhukov and Konev, his eyes burning with a cold, renewed ferocity. He doesn't ask them if they can take Berlin. He asks them who will take it first. The race isn't just against the Germans anymore. It is against the man Stalin once called an ally, and the words he is about to send back to Eisenhower will set the stage for a half-century of shadow war. April 1, 1945, 2 m. The General Staff HQ, Moscow. The telegram from Eisenhower sits on Stalin's desk like a live grenade. In it, the Supreme Allied Commander outlines his plan. He will stop his main thrust at the Elbe River, leaving Berlin to the Soviets while he cleans up the southern flank. To a rational military mind, it is a gesture of coalition harmony. To Stalin, it is a Trojan horse. Does he think I am a fool? Stalin asks, pacing the length of the rug. He suspects the Americans are playing a double game, whispering of Alpine redoubts to the Soviets while secretly ordering Patton's Third Army to floor the accelerator toward the Spree. Stalin's paranoia isn't just a character flaw. It is his primary engine of statcraft. He views Eisenhower's honesty as a sophisticated ruse designed to lull the Red Army into a slow, methodical approach while the Americans snatch the golden apple of Berlin from under their noses. Visual: Stalin's hands slamming down on a table covered in intelligence reports. Stalin dictates a reply to Eisenhower. His tone is oily, dripping with feigned agreement. Berlin has lost its former strategic importance, he writes. He tells Eisenhower that the Soviet High Command agrees the main blow should indeed be aimed elsewhere. It is a masterpiece of deception. Even as the ink dries on the message of cooperation, Stalin turns to Marshal Georgy Zhukov and Marshal Ivan Konev with a look that could freeze the Volga. So, Stalin says, his voice deceptively soft, who is going to take Berlin? We or the Allies? The tension between his two greatest commanders is electric. Zhukov, the hero of Moscow, and Konev, the master of maneuver, despise one another. Stalin feeds this rivalry like a man stoking a furnace. He gives them 48 hours to draft plans for a massive frontal assault on the city. He demands a pace that ignores the cost in human life. Behind the scenes, the Soviet machine shifts into a terrifying new gear. Millions of shells are moved to the front. Thousands of Katyusha rocket launchers are lined up. Stalin isn't just planning a battle, he is planning a statement. He wants the world to see the Red Army drown the Third Reich in a sea of fire before a single American paratrooper can even see the city's spires. But as the Soviet steamroller prepares to creak forward, a new report reaches the Kremlin. Eisenhower's vanguard has just captured a massive salt mine at Merkers. Inside isn't just gold, it's the entire foreign currency reserve of the Reich and thousands of stolen works of art. Stalin realizes the Americans are capturing more than just territory. They are capturing the levers of the post-war economy. The urgency turns into a frenzy. If Eisenhower reaches the German nuclear laboratories or the rocket scientists first, the Soviet victory will be hollow. The order is given, advance at all costs. But as the Red Army prepares to lung, a terrifying question remains. What happens if the two giants, racing at full speed, don't stop when they hit the same line? April 12, 1945, 6:30 p.m., a dacha outside Moscow. The news of President Franklin D. Roosevelt's death hit Stalin like a physical blow. For a moment, the iron-willed dictator is silenced. He had trusted Roosevelt, or at least, he understood him. They were two old lions who had carved up the world at Yalta. Now Roosevelt is gone, replaced by Harry Truman, a man Stalin views as a sharp-edged, unpredictable unknown. But more pressing than the death of a president is the terrifying speed of the keyed American Big Red 1 and the 2nd Armored Division. They have reached the Elbe. They are only 50 miles from Berlin. Stalin's generals report that the German resistance in the west has turned into a velvet front. German soldiers are fleeing east to surrender to the Americans, literally throwing their rifles into the bush to reach the western lines. To Stalin, this isn't just a collapse, it's a conspiracy. He becomes convinced that a separate peace is being negotiated, that the Germans are opening the gates for Eisenhower while fighting like cornered rats against the Soviets. Look at them, Stalin snarls, pointing at the intelligence maps. They open the front to Eisenhower, but they build walls of bodies against Zhukov. His reaction is a mixture of cold fury and strategic panic. He orders the Soviet press to scrub any mention of American help. The narrative must be singular: the Soviet Union is winning this war alone. But in private, he is obsessed with Eisenhower's intentions. He demands to know why the Americans aren't stopping. He fears that Eisenhower, emboldened by the lack of resistance, will ignore the Yalta agreements and drive straight into the heart of the Soviet zone. Stalin sends a biting, suspicious cable to the Allies, accusing them of making shady deals with the Hitlerite clique. The tone is a radical shift from the camaraderie of months prior. It is the first true chill of the Cold War. Eisenhower, however, is focused on the logistics of the kill. He sees the Elbe as a natural stopping point to avoid a friendly fire catastrophe between two massive, fast-moving armies, but Stalin doesn't believe in accidents. He believes in destiny and territory. He gives the final signal. The Berlin Strategic Offensive Operation is launched. Over 2 million men, 6,000 tanks, and 40,000 artillery pieces are unleashed. The sky over the Oder River turns black with Soviet metal. Stalin isn't just trying to defeat the remains of the Wehrmacht. He is racing to build a human wall of Red Army soldiers between Eisenhower and the future of Eastern Europe. As the Katyusha rockets scream into the night, Stalin sits in the dark, watching the smoke rise on the horizon. He knows that once the guns fall silent, the real war, the war for who owns the peace, will begin. April 25, 1945, 4:40 p.m., Torgau, Germany. On a bridge over the Elbe River, a young American lieutenant and a Soviet soldier reach out and grasp hands. It is the moment the world has been waiting for, the meeting at the Elbe. The German Reich has been sliced in half. In the photographs, there are smiles, shared cigarettes, and toasts of vodka and schnapps. But back in the Kremlin, Stalin isn't smiling. While his soldiers celebrate, Stalin is looking at the coordinates. The Americans have reached the Elbe, but they've also pushed into Thuringia and Saxony territories that were promised to the Soviet Union in the secret protocols of the Yalta Conference. To Stalin, Eisenhower's boots on Soviet soil are a provocation. He views every mile held by an American GI as a mile stolen from the Soviet Empire. Eisenhower is a soldier, yes, Stalin tells his inner circle, but he is a soldier of capital. Do not be fooled by the handshakes. Stalin's reaction to Eisenhower's proximity is to accelerate the brutality of the Berlin assault. He demands the city be taken by May 1st, International Workers' Day, regardless of the butcher's bill. He needs the symbolic total surrender to happen in a city draped in red, not under the watchful eye of the Western Allies. As the Red Army closes the ring around the Reichstag, Stalin's suspicion reaches a fever pitch. He receives word that the German General Wolf is negotiating a surrender in Italy. With the Oz, Stalin explodes. He sends a blistering message to the West, accusing Eisenhower and the Allies of paralyzing the German front in the West to allow the Nazis to move their best divisions to the east to kill Russians. It is a lie. The German army is a corpse, but for Stalin, the lie is a necessary tool to justify the iron grip he intends to keep on Eastern Europe. Then, the final blow to his nerves arrives. Intelligence reports suggest the Americans have captured the underground V-2 rocket factories at Nordhausen. They are hauling out crates of documents and kidnapping the very scientists Stalin intended to recruit for his own missile programs. Stalin realizes that while he is winning the battle for the streets, Eisenhower is winning the battle for the next century's technology. The Allies are no longer partners. They are rivals scavenging the same carcass. April 30th, 1945. The red flag finally flies over the ruins of the Reichstag. Hitler is dead in the dirt beneath the Chancellery. The war in Europe is over. But as the smoke clears, Stalin stands at his window in Moscow, looking west. Eisenhower's armies are massive, well-fed and backed by an industrial machine that hasn't been touched by a single bomb. Stalin's victory is a landscape of 27 million Soviet ghosts and a continent of rubble. His reaction to Eisenhower's advance wasn't just one of military rivalry, it was the realization that the end of one war was simply the opening bell for the next. The lines where the tanks stopped would become the borders of the Cold War. The handshake at the Elbe was the last moment of peace the world would know for 40 years.